name is Haroun Risa. I am an actor, author, scriptwriter, and film producer by profession who has featured in both local and international film and TV productions, including Netflix second season of Sense8, the Kenyan-made feature film 18 Hours, and also an episode of the locally made TV show Varshita. So, with matters concerning how long I have been writing, one thing I would say is that this is something that started from primary school, because I remember I used to do a lot of these English compositions in school. And a lot of these English compositions were based on things that I acquired from observing everything around me, and also some of the TV shows that I used to watch during that time, like that was when season 1 and season 2 of Prison Break was beginning, and also shows like 24, Malcolm in the Middle, Alias, That's So Raven, Supernatural, and so many other TV shows that gave me a lot of inspiration, alongside documentaries from Al Jazeera's programs like Al Jazeera World, 101 East, and Witness, which also produced some of the best documentaries I've ever watched. So this is some of the places where I would get inspiration from. I didn't just transition into writing and left behind acting, because acting is something I also do. It's just that with writing, I decided to improve more on some of the things I've been writing on, and the results are currently the 4 novels that I've published on Amazon. So with matters, the transition, I didn't leave behind acting, because if I'm gonna be writing a project, I want to make sure that I also feature in that project as an actor. One of the things that inspired the idea for Mombasa Raha My Foot was a real life situation I was in, because in the year 2009 I had run away from home. I ran away from home through school, because it was a boarding school, so it was easier to run away. And as a result, I ended up becoming houseboy in Thika. So there's a lot that I got to see in the outside world. And I believe that these scenarios and so many other things I witnessed gave me a lot of inspiration for Mombasa Raha My Foot, because I looked at how people were suffering, and I realized that you could actually raise awareness against this through fiction. You don't have to actually make it non-fiction. It can actually be a fiction story, but it shows everything that you wanna show the world about. So over the years, I developed Mombasa Raha My Foot, and the first story was about human trafficking and sex tourism in Kenya, something that still affects people to this day, something that is still going on. Even the US Department of State has pointed out that Kenya is a big player in human trafficking and sex tourism. That's why you find that there's a lot of sex tourism going on along the Kenyan coast. So this is something I decided as an actor, as an artist, at least there's something I'm gonna improve in the world. There's something I'm gonna raise awareness against, so that by the time I am no longer here in this planet, I made a difference somewhere. I made some people feel better about themselves, having raised awareness against something that affected them. So as an artist, I also felt, yeah, this is something that I can actually do to make a positive difference for people who have been affected. So far, I have published 4 novels on Amazon in the Mombasa Raha My Foot saga, And I'm planning for them to be 7 novels in total, because for the years that I've lived since my mother passed on in 2016, I have had to live in her house alone, and I've done that for currently 6 years. If we get into 2023, it's going to be 7 years in total. So basically, it was every year a novel, and that's what I've done so far with the 6 novels that I've written. And out of those 6 novels, four have been published on Amazon. The first book and the second book, Mombasa Raha My Foot and Kenyan Timing Ate My Boob, those two are actually my favorite, because these 2 novels are basically the foundation of the Mombasa Raha My Foot saga, so that when the 7th novel is being created, the 7th novel is going to actually go back to what happened before the first novel was written. So the 7th novel is basically what chains everything together in the cycle. So Mombasa Raha My Foot is basically a cycle of 7 novels. A good number of the risks I've taken with matters concerning writing was pretending to be a student in Kenyatta University, so that I would be able to gain access to the computer labs in there, and pretending to be a student, I would use the online facilities, because there's stronger internet there. So I would use the computer labs and do a lot of the research, a lot of the editing, and a lot of proofreading too, because even the cover designs were things I did myself, even on phone, because a lot of the stories I've written in the Mombasa Raha My Foot saga were stories I wrote on phone. So with matters editing, I would walk about 8 kilometers to Kenyatta University, because where I live is currently 8 kilometers far from Kenyatta University. So once I'm inside the university, I would go to the computer labs and I would do everything online and make sure that I've succeeded in all this. I'm very grateful for having done that, because it made the novels get published online on Amazon, and I was able to do so much with matters concerning the other novels that are coming up, the other 3 novels. Currently, I've been able to finish the 5th novel, which is called Navy Blue Stiletto, The Deceased Is Your Size. And the main theme of the 5th novel is basically second-hand clothes. The second-hand clothes that we Kenyans normally wear. But it's also a continuation of the characters from the first novel. So with all these novels, all the characters are they're all connected. They're all interconnected with each other. So by the time the 7th novel is finished, it's going to take people back to a few years before the first novel. It's going to take people back to a few years before Catherine was dumped at her sister Ruth's doorstep. So with the 7th novel, Catherine's alive. Now, with matters concerning the film adaptation of the books, I want to make sure that the actors who are going to play the roles of these characters, they aren't just arrogant people who are going to think that because we're famous, we cannot be told anything and we are supposed to get millions of shillings so that we play this role. I want to make sure that the actor that plays any role in this production is a self-disciplined individual who understands that this is a job that he or she is supposed to be doing. So with matters concerning the kind of actors who would play the characters in the film adaptations for all the novels, it doesn't matter even if it's not somebody who is famous. as long as this individual is talented enough to pull off this role and make it believable, I'm okay with that. If there's a writer out there who's working on their first book, I would like to advise them mostly to pick a 24-hour news channel of their choice. It doesn't matter even if it's CNN or Al Jazeera. Let them pick a 24-hour news channel of their choice and follow that news channel so that they can be able to get inspiration through the news stories and documentaries that the news channel is going to be showing. They're going to get a lot of inspiration so that they can be able to structure their stories further. And in matters structuring your story, always make sure before you do your first draft, you've done your own plot structure. You've done the plot structure showing everything that's going to take place from one point to another, from one location to another. And always make sure that even the title of your story feels believable enough and appealing enough for somebody to look at that book and be like, huh? Someone to look at that book and be like, I want to read this. So always make sure that with matters considering your first draft, even if it's writing on phone, continue to do that, because the editing and proofreading part is where your novel is going to start getting structured to look like an actual novel. So start with the first draft and don't waste time in writing your novel. Always make sure that the main theme that your novel is about, make sure that theme is something believable, and make sure your story from A to Z, make sure your story stays believable to every reader globally, and always aim for a global audience. You can start with the local audience from whichever country you're from, but always aim for a global audience and always keep practicing with matters considering writing. The most common traps for new authors, I would say, would be new authors thinking that upon writing a story, they can just publish it anywhere and expect that this is something that's just going to become a bestseller overnight. Now, there is a lot of marketing that an author is supposed to be doing for themselves. Even if you're part of a publishing company, there is a lot of marketing that you're supposed to be doing, because as an author, this is something that's going to build your own portfolio. So you always have to make sure that whatever stories that you've written about, you always have to make sure that these are things that are going to carry your name forward, because your name is in front of the book cover. The front book cover has your name. So you always have to make sure that these are stories that are going to carry your name further to a global audience. And you always have to make sure that your story is believable enough, even if someone's not going to like your story, because there are people, of course, there are people who are not going to like whatever it is you do. You always have to make sure that everything from the beginning to the end is believable for whatever readers that are going to come your way. And if there's one thing about writing that I consider is very important advice, it's stay consistent. Stay consistent with your story. It doesn't matter what theme, what genre your book is about. Stay consistent with the plot structure and make sure your book is believable enough. Even when someone is reading it, they see it as a film, they see it as a TV show, and they're like, yeah, this would make an amazing show. So stay consistent with everything you do, and always make sure that you don't give up on yourself. If I could spend a day with another popular author, it would actually be Dan Brown, the author of Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code. Dan Brown is one of the most amazing authors that whose works I've ever come across. And I feel that there's a way Dan Brown uses real life situations and real life things to make fiction. So I actually got inspired by that because I saw the way Dan Brown picked, like, for example, using topics like real life topics like the Illuminati, and then creating angels and demons. Using real life groups like the Freemasons to create a book like The Lost Symbol. So, of course, this is something I'd like to hear more from him about how he was able to do all this research about things like the Illuminati and things like the Freemasons and create such amazing stories out of them. I'd like to, of course, this is something I'd like to know how he was able to do all this research, how he was able to meet all these people, and actually not get into any danger of any kind. And to tell you the truth, with Matter's literary success, I picture it as best-selling, as a book being a bestseller, as a book being accepted by so many people around you. You know, so many people look at what you've done and they're like, this guy actually is an inspiration for me not to laze around. I can also achieve something. If this guy's been able to do it even before turning 30, I can be able to do the same. So with Matter's literary success, it's not just the publishing of the book and the fact that people have accepted this book so much. Also, if the book gets to be a production somewhere, and that production also gets to spread worldwide, gets to be a best-selling production as well. Well, writing and publishing a book, it contributed to a lot that I have adapted, because there's quite a lot I've had to fix by myself in the years that followed after my mother's death. So there's a lot I got to learn because I became my own nurturing parent. This is something that got cemented after my mother died. So I was like, okay, now it's you against the world, literally. So you have to find your own way, and you have to also be careful about your decisions because nobody else is going to be affected except you. So when I embarked on the writing, and when I decided to finish these novels once and for all, that decision changed quite a lot, because I realized that when I embark on something, I want to make sure that it's not just finished, but also it's something that is going to carry my name forward. It's going to be something wonderful for a global audience. So it did change a lot. And with Matters supporting my writing, among the biggest supporters have been the Mbogiama Writers group from Alliance Francaise, individuals like Denis Musheru, and also Abdullah Ibule from the Nuria store. He has helped a lot with selling Mombasa Raha My Foot locally. And also, I've seen a lot of Kenyan authors being very excited when they come across me, because they're like, okay, Mombasa Raha My Foot is written by you. And how old are you again? So I keep getting asked, how old are you? So, and then they realize, okay, this guy is this young, but he's been able to do all this. And I'm just sitting around here lazing around. So you find that a sense of inspiration has gotten into somebody and they get to finish their own projects. And this is something I feel is very powerful, not just for me, but for every other author in Kenya. who's working on their own projects. As a spirit animal, well, mostly I would choose a cat because I practice a lot of meditation and yoga. By my own self, I practice a lot of hatha yoga and meditation. So with matters as a spirit animal, I would choose a cat, especially considering how quiet a cat can be, and also cats are they're generally quiet and clean animals. So of course with matters meditation, I would choose a cat a lot more.